Hello, everybody. My name is Mondre Moffett. I am the host of Black Music Footprints, a jazz experience. And on today's show, I have with me three-time Grammy award-winning artist, world-renowned, my good friend, Branford Marsalis. How you doing, Branford?
What's up, Dre?
Yeah, listen, man. I was thinking about. I, I like for you to talk to me about music fundamentals, like you know, just start off by telling me, give me your definition of what jazz is and what does it take to play it.
What jazz is? Oh my God.
I know.
I mean, it's complex, man. Jazz is an amalgam of everything.
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
field hollers, traditional African songs, probably some American Indian music, European harmony, European songs, European instruments, African instruments, all based on the Pentecostal beat.
wow, wow, I've never heard that before. All
That's the
based,
beat.
yeah,
That's where it came from.
yeah. It's just so much I want to talk with you about. First, let me go back to New Orleans. The social, political, historical context of New Orleans, creating this music that we call jazz from the turn of the 20th century, perhaps, and producing people like Louis Armstrong, and the list goes on. What made New Orleans, the city, so different from any other American city that produced this music that you just described?
Um, I think that for all New World music, you have to have the combination of Europeans, Africans, and Indians. Where you have reggae in Jamaica or soca in other Caribbean countries, calypso or merengue in Puerto Rico or bombi plena in Puerto Rico, Cuban music. You had the combination of these three cultures crashing into each other. Uh, the Europeans also moved to places like Australia and New Zealand, where there wasn't the presence of Africans and there's no viable new sounding music that came out of those communities. So the one thing that New Orleans had different was that the institution that sanctioned slavery was a French institution and a Catholic institution and not a British Protestant institution. Protestantism at that time was very dour. And the French thing, I mean, Mardi Gras is a complete corruption of Catholicism. Mardi Gras is the day before Ash Wednesday. And the idea that as long as you do all your debauchery on the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday, all is forgiven. The Protestants don't have such such traditions from 250 years ago. They weren't afraid by large congregations of Africans. So the famous Sunday get-togethers in Congo Square would have been forbidden in the British systems because there were all of these rules. The greatest fear, evidently, having not been there, but what I've read, was the fear of insurrection. So all of these rules designed to keep large numbers of Africans from congregating together. So you had Africans from all different parts of Western Africa who spoke different languages, had different cultures, and there was no way for them to hash out or to like blend these differences in a musical sense because they weren't allowed to really spend a lot of time with one another. But in New Orleans, the legendary Congo Square was the day off for all slaves, and all those Africans would get together in the square and have jam sessions.
They were allowed
And
to
I
play their
think
drums.
they were allowed to play their drums, and then they were also allowed to have, or it is said that they were allowed to have that slaves could attend concerts at the Paris Opera House, which would have been unthinkable in the British system. So they were exposed to sounds and exposed to things that allowed for this kind of melding of all of these cultures to happen.
That is amazing.
Speculation on my part. I wasn't there, but when you look at the history of the country, Louisiana was one of the few places where there wasn't this. Well, when the French were running things there, this massive fear of insurrection, so they didn't really limit the number of Black Americans who could affiliate with one another or associate with one another on Sundays.
Yeah, I just always thought that the Congo Square had a lot to do with it, with that none of the other cities had. New York didn't have it, Chicago didn't have it, Congo
Right.
Square. But the phenomenal thing is not only the creation, the beginning of that whole movement, the lineage just went throughout the whole history of America. I mean, even all the way up to you and Donald Harrison and Terrence Blanchard, of course, Wynn, and all of the Marsalis, and all the kids that your daddy taught. The great Ellis.
Oh, we have a
Marsalis.
lot of people, even the people we didn't teach. I mean, the Paulin family is like 5 generations. The Barberin family is 4 or 5 generations.
I got a chance to play with him.
Marcellus family is 2 generations. I mean, they're musicians who go from way back, and are still, their descendants are still playing music.
Right. Kent Jordan and his dad, and Nicholas Payne is. I mean, you have all. It was a city that this music. I mean, I was there to do the Boland, the Buddy Boland story, hanging out with your brother, and first time somebody asked me, say, you want to play? What do you want to play? Do you want to play tradition or do you want to play modern? I had never been asked that question before going to New Orleans, and I said tradition. And I went down and cats took me on Bourbon Street, man, and cats could play. That's all I can tell you. Cats could play.
Yep.
I did strictly business, and I did some gigs with Delphio, and it's like nothing that you ever want to experience or never had a chance to experience. You have to go to New Orleans if you're a musician. And then there's a little migration to New Orleans. I know my boy Steve Gordon and some of the others started migrating down to New Orleans. I think your dad had a lot to do with that.
I don't know. New Orleans had a lot to do with that. I think it's more than my dad. They might have come there to study with him, but to choose to stay there. I mean, I have a student who lives there, and he was a piano player. And he said, what should I do? I said, move to New Orleans. And he said, I'm thinking about going to New York. I said, well, suit yourself. And he wound up going because his wife got a job, was working for Philips, the electronics company, and their home base is Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So he went to the Netherlands, and he had like 3 gigs in 5 years. And when they moved back to the States, he had 5 gigs within a week of being in New Orleans in a day. And he loves it down there. And it really did change the way he heard music and thought about music. And I mean, it's that kind of city. There are gigs to be had. You can work and work and work and work. And there are very few cities like that.
In my mind, a city that stands on tradition, the traditional sound of jazz, the New Orleans sound, seems to be the foundation for the modern sound. It's like so many of you cats play modern, pioneers of it. Again, the list of people I just named. Is the traditional sound of jazz, is that necessary to get to the modern sound?
Yes and no. I think the tradition of anything, you were to go take architecture classes, they wouldn't start in 1960. They would start with the Hellenistic movement in ancient Greece. There's like certain foundations and certain bedrocks that matter. There are a lot of people who play modern who don't really know the tradition, but it always feels like something's missing when I hear them play.
That's why I asked you the definition.
Well, they
of
don't
jazz.
think it's missing because they haven't learned the traditional stuff. It sounds fine to them, but I think that there's like a thing at the bottom that audiences that they don't really like jazz, but they don't hate it. They're curious and they'll come to a couple of concerts, but it's a thing that they have to feel. And a lot of modern playing is more about what you know than what you feel. And the true modernism to me in jazz is to have this advanced and evolved way of thinking of things, but with a sensibility that's regular, that people can relate to. So people don't have to focus on what's going on at the top. They can just groove with what's happening at the bottom. And that's what we try to do.
I mean, you have one thing about you, you have been so consistent in your musical output from the very beginning. I was checking out today, Scenes from the City.
Scenes in the City, yeah.
Scenes in the City.
Yeah.
That particular.
I was a kid. I did my best.
Well, it's interesting. I think that's a Charlie Mingus tune, right? Scenes
in the City, yeah.
And the story, like where you at, it's like Uptown. I was checking out that story, and that was a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
And
that's why I wanted to do it. It's a great, Mingus was one of those guys that did things like that, like little jazz oratorios using actors. And it was a great idea because the actor is Wendell Pierce, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had just moved to New York to go to Juilliard, and I said, "I got a gig for you, bruh." And he came.
But he was unknown then, wasn't he?
He was unknown for the next 20 years after that.
Wow. That's amazing.
Next 15, at least. Yeah,
And actually, my kid brother's on that record. Maybe one track or two tracks, Chunette Moffett. And
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
You know what? And everybody thinks of Chunette, playing with Wynton, but his first recording, he first played with you. That was his first recording.
Right.
That's a little known fact. And Harley goes unnoticed. But you gave Chunette his first break.
Nah, we knew he was around. I just said, yeah, come play on this tune. But it wasn't like it wasn't like what his career became mushroom from that. I think when it really started to blossom when he did join the band, Wynton's band, when we were playing together. Yeah.
But you had such a great influence on that whole scene and on that group, because I knew those your boys, Kenny Kirkland, oh my God, bless his soul, Tane, and those cats that made Wynton's band, Black Codes, I knew where the roots of that band came from, and it was just phenomenal. Black Codes from Underground. The picture of little Jason, on the front cover in the classroom also points to the fact that what you all don't get enough credit for is the whole idea of the educational piece. And I don't know if you got that from your dad.
I'm sure I did. I don't need credit for that.
Unappreciated.
I don't do things. I don't do much of anything to be appreciated by people who don't appreciate it. You know what I mean? I'm not. I like what I'm doing, and I'm very fortunate to be able to make a good living doing what I like to do. And because a lot of cats don't, they're not as fortunate in that regard to just do what we do, to play these venues that we play and go on tour and all of that stuff. And I don't take it for granted, but I'm never on the stage hoping that people like it. I want them to like it, but it's okay with me if they don't like it. At least they tried it. Thanks for trying. Thanks for coming. But I believe in passing on information to young people as I age. I believed in it when I was still young. I definitely am not interested in getting any kind of accolades for it. It's just something that, because my dad never got accolades for it. And I never heard him complaining about it. He never complained about anything. So it's just something that we have the ability to do it and the opportunity to do it. So we should do it.
What are three in your mind reflecting upon your dad? Because I've got a chance to hang out with E, as we so affectionately call him, taking him from the gigs from Yoshi's back to his hotel every night. And he always would say, come on up, invite me up.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to be an all night session.
Yes, it is.
We'll go downtown and pick up the New York Times,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it would be a lesson. You know, it would be a lesson. You know, we just starting from the front page of the newspaper. You know, but what are maybe three things that you can reflect on? I'm gonna say three things that you learned from your dad that you take with you.
You should always know. You should always know how you sound, because if you can't identify what your problems are, you can't fix them. People can tell you what your problems are, but you have to be able to hear it.
That's something you learned from your dad?
Yeah. My dad would, every time somebody would play something, they would say, how's that sound, Ellis? He goes, I don't know. How's it sound to you? And he's always forcing you to think, because a lot of times with lessons, they don't really want you to think. They just want you to do what they say. Get this mouthpiece, get this read from this book, do the first 15 it is, come back next week. Check, please. Very good. Come back next week. Check, please. And his whole thing when he gave lessons, I mean, he was always asking questions. How would you approach this? What do you think this should be? Because he wanted to force us to think. You know, it's a very Socratic way, because there's a quote that's attributed to Socrates because he taught all these great scholars and thinkers. He even taught Alexander the Great. And they said, man, you taught all these great people how to be. He says, I never taught anybody how to do anything. I just taught them how to think. And I think that's what my dad really always tried to do, is to get you to be thoughtful, to think about what it was you were doing, and to think critically, even if it pushes against the grain, even if it pushes against him, to think critically.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, he asked questions. I heard Wynton say, someone asked Wynton in an interview, during this pandemic, what would your dad say to you? And Wynton said, dad would say, where you at? He would ask the question, where you at? And by that he meant, you need to be who you say you are at this point.
Right.
Now you have adversity. Who are you now?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really very, very profound. That's something that I would expect Ellis would ask the question, where you at? Mm-hmm. And I definitely carried out. So I'm going to ask Branford, where you at, bro? Where you at?
I have no idea. Still trying to figure that out, man.
Yeah. The oldest brother of the Marsalis family, you had Wynton. I'm going to ask you this question, because we all know Skane, who Wynton is. What are three things, one or two things, doesn't matter, that you learned from Wynton, growing up with Wynton?
How to be meticulous in your approach, how to be serious. His discipline was amazing. And I was very undisciplined, and I didn't have any desire to be disciplined.
I heard about that. I heard about that.
Man, that make you jealous? I'm like, no, I didn't want to do it. I thought it was great. It was great to watch, though. I mean, he practiced 3 hours every day from the time he was 12 until I left the house. So from 1971 to 1978, 3 hours a day.
Small space. So did he disturb folks in the house?
Man, New Orleans is one of the loudest cities in the world. It was noise. Yeah. You got people outside playing stereos, blasting till 2 o'clock in the morning. What's a trumpet at 7:30 in the morning? Mm-hmm. He would practice for half an hour, 7:30 to 8. Then he would come home for lunch, because he went to school 6 blocks from home, and he would practice a half an hour there. And then when we would go to the Arts Center, the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, he would practice for an hour there. And then when he came home, he practiced. As soon as he finished his homework, he practiced for an hour there.
Wow.
And it was every day, every day, every day. So I knew that if I ever decided to get serious, at least I didn't have to say, well, now, well, how do I do it? I had a template for how to do it. It was just a matter of whether I wanted to do it. And when I was in my late 30s, I said, okay, yeah, now I'm ready to do this. So I just started doing it.
You have a reputation of just being just intuitive, like just a musical genius. I don't know if you know that or not.
Whatever.
When I first met Wynn, we were hanging out. I think it may have been his first or second gig with Art Blakey. And I said, yeah, Eddie Henderson called me. If I missed the first night, Eddie Henderson called. And no, I called Eddie Henderson, and Eddie Henderson, when he answered the phone, he said, it's true. All the hype that we heard about this guy, Wynn Marsalis, Eddie Henderson, said it's all true. So I went over the second night. I got a chance to hang out with Wynn. The whole time, Wynn was talking about my big brother Branford. My big brother Branford.
Well, you know,
like
that was my boy, man. So you know, he's blowing. He was gassing me up.
He said, like, I mean, you think I'm playing? Wait to hear my big brother Branford.
Oh, yeah, you know, that was, yeah, he was always gassing me up. He was the one. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't play no jazz at all.
Really?
He was the one, man. You can do it, man. You should be playing, man. You should be doing this. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to do this. But then I started trying it out, and I said, yeah, this ain't bad. I like this. Now I got to learn how to do it.
Wow.
You know, and I think that was like the advantage that I had from growing up with my mom and my dad, is that my understanding of being a good musician or a bad musician or an average musician was not based on a reader's poll or a critic's opinion or any kind of like pop culture awards or recognition. Because, I mean, they mean well and it's nice, but I could put on a Lester Young record and get smoked by a dead dude. Smoked. I mean, you know, because if what we're playing is so modern, it's real simple logic. You know, oh, we represent the young lions, we're the new guard. Well, if this is the new thing, how come we can't play the old thing? How good can the new thing be if you can't play the old thing? Now, in popular culture, like the old thing is dead, long live the new thing. And then every 5 years, there's a new thing. And it just gets, you know, more mind-numbingly misinformed and more misinformed. And there were guys, you know, in my crew that were like, man, why you listening to all that old crap, man? You need to be, you know, we got our thing. I was like, man, not for long if we don't get this other thing together. It just made sense to me. You know, like I have a friend of mine who's he was a former saxophone player. We went to the same high school together. And I hadn't seen him since high school. And when I started doing the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, I got a call from a guy named Barry Abear, and it was him. And I said, well, what are you doing now? He says, man, I'm a physicist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory out here in Pasadena. So we came and hung out with him. He brought us up to the Wilson Observatory and started showing planets, and had a great day with Barry. And when we left, I remember he said something to Reese. He says, you know, if you ever need help with your homework, you know, give your Uncle Barry a call. And then Reese says, you could help me with my homework? He says, man, I'm a physicist. I can do 7th grade math. And it kind of stuck with me. You know, like to me, like jazz from the 1930s is like 7th grade math. So how many of us as modernists can do 7th grade math? Not many. And there's a million excuses and a million reasons, but it's really, if what we are playing is advanced as we like to say it is as advanced as we like to say it is, then we should be able to play the early stuff very simply, but we can't. As a group, we cannot play that stuff. So I just had to deal with that. Like everybody was talking about moving forward. I said, man, if I can't play the stuff that's behind me, how can I possibly move forward? So I spent a lot of time learning how to play like Sonny Rollins and learning how to play like, and not in the traditional jazz way, because when you say you want to learn how to play like Sonny Rollins, you know, you get a lick book and learn some Sonny Rollins licks or a transcription. But what I really wanted to do was sound like Sonny Rollins. I didn't want to play the same notes in the same sequence. I wanted that sound. And that was the thing that really, I think, got me over the rhetorical kind of hump, was that I was focused on sound, not really on harmony.
Let me ask you this real quick because we're almost out of time. But I got a couple of things I would run by you. Just about time. What would be the difference between sound and vocabulary? Or if there is a difference?
Oh, well, there is a difference. Like let's use language. You know, let's say you have an English professor who knows every word in the English dictionary. All right. And then you put him on a stage to do Shakespeare. How's he going to fare? Not very good. Because it ain't enough to know the words. You have to know how to deliver the words with a sound that's relative to the period. Or if you took him and just put him in the pulpit and everybody staring at him, waiting for him to give a stirring sermon. I mean, you have preachers who don't have a great vocabulary, and they got people losing their minds because of the delivery. Sound creates the delivery. And the music system is not like the English language because there's only 12 notes. So you got a 1 in 12 chance of being right. And that's some fantastic odds when you think about it. You got a 1 in 12 chance of being right almost always. But the thing that moves people, the thing that makes music great to me is that instrumental music great is that the sound of an instrument can have an emotional effect on the listener. Data is just data, which is why with a lot of musicians, you go to gigs and it's just a room full of musicians applauding musician stuff. Yeah, and then they criticize people for not knowing enough harmony to understand what they're doing, which is like, it's really a musician's problem. It's not a people problem. People are not going to go take harmony classes to appreciate you. It's just not going to happen. So I think it was really great for me to kind of like settle in on this idea that we need to, as a group, work on sound. Sad songs need to sound sad. Happy songs need to sound happy. Now, personally, you want to work on all this technique and all this fast stuff, go right ahead. But funny songs should sound funny. It's like a real simple premise, but that's the hardest thing to do. It took a decade to learn how to do that, maybe even more than a decade, to just learn how to create emotion through sound. Yeah.
And that's a good lesson for, young students who want to learn to play this music. I got a couple of things I want to run by you real quick, and they can be brief answers. Finish this sentence for me. Fill in the blank. A jazz artist must.
Bruh, come on, I don't know.
A student want to learn to play jazz must blank.
Listen to hundreds of recordings, but only about 2 or 3 records a year. Nice long time for that, huh?
Wow. Oh,
you have to be able to hear the sound. It's like I give a guy, let's go learn this solo. He comes back next week. I got it. I'm like, no, you don't have it.
You're right.
And then he plays. I'm like, okay, yeah, you got the notes, but you don't have the sound. Well, what do you mean? See, that's all I got for you. And it takes them a while. Like a year later, they say, oh, now I know what you mean. Or they'll just say, man, you full of it, and go get another teacher. But yeah, you got to listen to a couple of records a year. You got to really listen to the record. You have to listen to it and with no expectations, because we always have expectations when we listen. We have an agenda. We want to know what key it's in, what time signature it's in, what they're doing, what the lick is. Just listen. Just listen. Listen with no expectations and listen with no preconditions. And it's very amazing what the music will ultimately reveal to you if you allow it to. If you come in with rules, then the only thing you're going to hear is the thing you're looking for. If you come in with no rules, it's amazing what you can stumble into.
Yeah, in jazz music, tell me in your mind, since we just short on time, maybe your 3 most influential jazz musicians in the history of jazz, and tell me why.
I don't have 3. I have like 25.
I was going to ask you for 5. You got the.
Bro, I can, all right, that's ridiculous.
You can't.
Louis Armstrong, clearly. Sidney Bechet, Lester Young, Jelly Roll Morton. 5.
That was 4.
John Coltrane.
John Coltrane's your fifth?
And we leaving out 20. We leaving out a million. Sonny,
What?
Wayne Shorter, just you leaving out everybody. Warren Marsh.
Which really speaks to just how prolific jazz is in terms of the body of work. There's so many. I mean, you Dizzy, Charlie Parker, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and Ornette Coleman.
Yep.
I mean,
yep. That's what I had 5. It's crazy. Dewey Redman. I mean, you know, I could just go on and on. I listen to so much music, and I have listened to so much music.
Art Tatum. You know,
And not him so much, but anyway.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, everybody want to fight over that one. Even my dad wanted to fight. I mean, you wasting your time. I ain't a piano player.
Yeah.
So I am not impressed by his pianistic rumblings. You know,
Yeah.
I just know that it's always more impressive when it was solo piano than when he played with other people, for sure.
I always
He just
play
didn't-
Tiger Rag for piano players that think they can play. I put on
there's
Tiger
another
Rag.
Tiger Rag. There's another Tiger Rag that you can play is a Benny Goodman Tiger Rag with Teddy Wilson playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that one is like swinging. It ain't just
Yeah.
fast. It's swinging, and Teddy's just killing it.
Jazz music, the Pentecostal beat.
Bruh.
The Pentecostal
traditional beat.
The Pentecostal beat. You didn't say
Traditional
swing.
beat.
You didn't say swing, but that's swinging though.
Well, swing comes out the beat.
Yeah.
See, I think the biggest, I did it. It's like some guy was asking me, like, how do you learn how to feel on 2 and 4? I said, I don't. The swing beat is on all 4s with an accent on 2 and 4. It ain't on 2 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's boom, 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 boom. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not click, 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 click. It's all 4 beats. It's
All
just like
4
listening
beats.
to, like, you know, just like listening to Nina Simone play. I never knew what it meant to be free when it's just her and the drummer and she's just grooving. You go to YouTube and check that one out.
Yeah.
It's the most stunning thing. It's swinging so hard. And
Yeah.
she's not a jazz player per se,
Right.
but she's definitely a church player.
Yeah. From North Carolina.
And it's just, the beat is just so profound when you hear it. It's just incredible. And that's what swing is. That's swing right there.
What's that recording again? Did you speak it up?
It's that old Billy Taylor song. It's called I Wish I Knew What It Means to Be Free. It's live in Montreux. And it's just her playing piano and a drummer playing brushes.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Incredible.
Mm.
Well, Brand, I'm gonna let you go, man. Enjoy the game
All right.
tonight. Thank you
All right,
so
Drake.
much. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, man, for doing
Appreciate
this
you,
for
bro.
me. Appreciate you.
Back to the shed. Talk
Yes,
to you
sir.
later.
All right.
All right, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I didn't even get a chance to play your music.